Democratic Republic of Congo's election saga. We are now joined in studio by African Affairs analyst Nixon Katembo. Nixon, thank you so much for joining us on The Globe and a very good evening. Now, first it was a postponement and then a rescheduling to the 30th of December, which is 7 days away. The postponement, they're technically not ready. What's your take on this?
That is an admission that the Electoral Commission was not ready to go into these elections, but however, the political implication to this is far immense, that it's a risk to send the country in a situation where that can be ungovernable and unmanageable.
Now, Nixon, let's go back to the day when the voting material was destroyed in the fire in the building. What exactly, in response and in reaction to that fire and the damage to the property and the voting material, the president of Seni, or the commission, said that they would be ready in time for elections to take place. They would pull voting machines from other provinces to ensure that the elections did go ahead on Sunday. Now, what do you think changed? What is technically not ready for this election on Sunday to take place after stating that they would be ready?
I think one have to look at the logistical problem that exists within the DRC, and not only that, the infrastructure problem. So you cannot say that you're going to withdraw machines from all parts of the country back into Kinshasa in just few days. Remember, the burning of the machine just happened just a few days ago. So it was technically impossible. And the other thing that is coming to this issue is how did the burning of the machine happens. There hasn't been transparency on what transpired on the fateful day of the machines getting burned. And owing to the fact that the area in which the machines were burned is a highly secured area, with the presidential guard having its headquarters there, the logistical headquarters of the DRC National Army is there, and people are asking questions. How did somebody go past this highly security area and to go and burn those machines? That's still another question.
Now, they've stated that they are continuing with investigations with regard to how that fire took place and why it took so long for the fire department and emergency operations to take place and ensure that, the fire is curbed. Now, let's move on now to the people on the ground. Firstly, starting with the presidential candidates. Opposition presidential candidates, as well as the government's presidential candidate. What's their reaction to the postponement and now the new date, 7 days' time?
You know, what is known in the DRC perhaps might not be known to the rest of the international community, is that the DRC Independent Electoral Commission is sort of an extension of the government side. So there is no trust, public trust, in the DRC Electoral Commission. That is one problem. The other problem that exists there is the division that have emerged between the political parties, and that poses another challenge. So if you ask me what is the mood about the candidates, obviously some of the candidates have been asking for the postponement of the elections. Some have said, no, let us go to the elections because this is the only chance that you can demonstrate that the people are ready for a change of government. But those mixed reactions are to anyone's else guess to what will be next after the postponement. And to my best knowledge, and to the best knowledge of people who know the DRC too well, it is nearly impossible and very impossible to reorganize these elections in just 1 week, as the independent.
I was just going to ask you that. Is 7 days enough for, for the Electoral Commission to ensure that they are ready for elections and for the people to cast their ballot?
They are not. They are not, Lulu.
So why give a date so close to the first postponement, the 23rd and then the 30th? Could they not have asked for a longer extension?
This is, in my view, to look at the tensions that have been happening in the country. And the only way you can sort of quell that and appease the public opinion is to give a certain date that we are going to have these elections after 7 days. Logistically speaking, it is impossible. And the Electoral Commission is not going to disperse those materials that are only arriving in the country on Saturday in 1 week. It can't happen. For the country which is larger than the size of Western Europe, in fact, from Kinshasa to Goma, the capital of the North Kivu province, it's like from Johannesburg to Dar es Salaam.
Just hold it right there, Nixon. We've got joining us via Skype Aime Zonveni, and he is the editor of the Times, an online news edition, and he's joining us from Lubumbashi in the DRC. Aime, good evening, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm in a studio with Nixon Katembo, who is just giving us an update or an analysis of the postponement and now the new date for elections, which is the 30th of December. Aime, you are there. You are in the DRC. What's the reaction on the ground to the new date that has been given by the Electoral Commission?
Thank you very much for having me on the program, Lulu. The reactions have been quite mixed. The opposition has expressed its anger to see that the elections have yet again been postponed. Now, we should bear in mind that this should be the third time that these elections have been postponed. They should have happened in 2016, and they were postponed to end of 2017. And then now we're having them again postponed. So the opposition is quite unhappy about that. It is believed that this is indicative of the will by the regime to extend the stay of President Kabila as long as they possibly can do it.
Now, Aime, we've seen, Nixon was just touching on the fact that the fire that took place, and we had a discussion about it with regard to the fire that took place in a very secure area that destroyed a lot of the voting material that was supposed to be used on Sunday. Now, he's stating the fact that that is a very contentious issue as to how it could have happened and why it happened. Now, what's your take with regards to that and the fact that the Electoral Commission is stating that they are technically not ready? As you mentioned, this is now the third postponement of these elections. Aime, can you hear me? All right, Nixon, as we try and sort that technical issue out with Aime joining us via Skype.
The explanations given by the chairperson of the Electoral Commission was that elections, I can hear me?
Continue?
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay, great. Go ahead.
Hello?
Aime, can you hear me?
Yes,
okay.
The materials that were destroyed in the fire were only, according to the Electoral Commission, representing 3% of the electoral materials, and that were to be used in the city, the capital city of Kinshasa. And the CENI's chairperson has this afternoon in a press conference said that they were able to recover to recall 8,000 electronic voting machines from other areas of the country. And it is due to that fact that it became necessary to have new ballot papers printed, and actually they were printed in South Africa. And the last batch of these ballot papers will be flown to the DRC only on the eve of the 23rd, which has explained the postponement. But from a logistical standpoint, it will be quite difficult to redeploy these materials once they reach Kinshasa to the various parts of the country where they have to be used, even though most of these materials should be used in Kinshasa.
Now, 7 days' time, is that enough with regards to a postponement to the 30th of December? As you say, logistically, it will be a nightmare. Nixon Katembo has also mentioned the same fact. Nixon, Aime is talking to the point of the logistical problems that the Electoral Commission is facing.
It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare for the country the size of the DRC. And I can guarantee you that 7 days are not enough. How they are going to do that is just a mirage.
The reaction on the ground, Aime, with regards to the Congolese people who are supposed to be casting their ballot, who were supposed to cast their ballots on Sunday, what's the reaction been and the feeling on the ground from the people of Congo? All right, we seem to be experiencing some delay with Aime. Aime, can you hear us? All right, Nixon. I'd love to get... All right, Aime, I was just trying to find out from you the reaction from the Congolese people on the ground. What's the feeling on the ground after this postponement and the new date that has been announced?
It's mostly anger. People are very much unhappy. In front of the Electoral Commission's building this afternoon, there were people massed, and they were demanding that Corneille Nangaa, who is the chairperson of the CENI, should immediately resign. And so were also they asking for President Kabila to immediately step down because this new postponement of the elections could not be tolerated. The regime has not expressed any feelings at all. They think and they say that due to those technical constraints, we should allow this one additional week to have elections. But will this week be sufficient to have proper elections? That question remains to be seen.
What's been the reaction? You were there. What's the reaction from President Joseph Kabila himself? Has he reacted in any way to the new announcement of a date, the 30th of December?
No, he has not expressed any views at all with regard to this new postponement of the elections. From the regime, generally speaking, they have been quite very quiet, not voicing any concerns at all. It is rather the opposition, more specifically Martin Fayulu from the Lamuka coalition, who this morning has said that this cannot be tolerated, cannot be contemplated to yet again have the elections postponed.
Now, Aime, I'll come back to you just shortly. Nixon, just to put it out there, with regards to the non-reaction, as Aime has mentioned, from the regime, do you think this is a technical stance or is an act of maybe another postponement to take place? Because as both you mentioned, the fact that logistically this will be a nightmare.
Look, Lulu, I will stand by my stance that this is the technical aspect on the part of the regime to hold these elections at a date that suits them. Because the ground, if you look at the political landscape in the election campaign, have been shifting towards the oppositions. And I think the government realized that this is not winnable. The only way we can, delay the elections is to make sure that we have a certain problem that is going to actually cause for the delay of the elections, because there was no way out for the government or the Electoral Commission to explain the postponement, if there was any. But what is happening now for the regime in Kinshasa to sort of put the country at crossroad, put all the political play at crossroad, and therefore arousing popular uprising, and therefore they can declare a state of emergency, and the elections are postponed indefinitely. And you can guarantee you this is where the DRC is going. We've been saying about this, that these elections are not going to happen. I remember talking on this very program that the elections are not going to happen. I'm not changing my stance, and I know for sure that if you look at the geopolitics of the regions, military maneuvering already happening in the region. In a place like Goma, there were 3 military planes that were offloaded at the airport in Goma. And one wonder the place is not under war. The war is in Beni, where the army have to face the ADF, but they're already deploying. And that tells you how much they are so much at high stake in terms of the security situation in the country. And this is where the country is going. And I'm afraid that is going to be a very, very worse situation coming ahead, especially when it comes to the issue of security, not only for the DRC, but for the entire region.
Now, Aime, your take on this after Nixon's response there?
I'm not saying that the situation is core. It is worrying in the sense that if these elections should have happened, they should have happened in 2016, but they have been postponed for many reasons. Many believe that the crisis in the Kasais, which where the basis of the first postponement was purely manufactured by the regime to try and buy time. And in 2017, there was this power sharing agreement which was brokered by the Catholic Church, which led to one more year of transition, which now should have culminated into the holding of polls in 2018. And then the CENI says that all the materials, 97% to be exact, have been deployed in the various areas, and that only Kinshasa is posing a problem because the materials that were burnt in the fire were only for Kinshasa. So from the geopolitical stance, looking at the situation, it will be very much negative if the DRC again slipped back into instability, because then with the 9 neighboring countries, it is the whole region that again might be set ablaze. But at the same time, we should also bear in mind that the country is.
All right, we seem to have lost Aime there for a few seconds. We'll wait for him to just come back and join us. Now, with regards to international community and the reaction from the international community calling for free and credible elections and the safety of the people of the Democratic Republic of Congo, do you think this is enough?
Let me state categorically that this is not enough.
What do you think should be happening?
The call could have come before. The call could have been made in 2015 when the country was gearing towards the end of President Joseph Kabila's term. This is when the call could have been made. To make the call now is just too late. And, you know, the country is going towards a downward spiral because the government in place and the regime in its entirety is not willing to live. And the worst of all is that throughout Kabila's regime since 2001, there hasn't been a sort of an effort to build statisticians that will make sure that they are beyond political parties, they are beyond individuals who come to power. And if you look at how the situation happened in the country politically and administratively, you would understand that the administration is centered around one person. The judiciary is not there. The police is merely commanded by one person. And all other statisticians are centered around the authority of the president.
Nixon, just hold it there. Just very quickly, before we let you go, with regards to going forward, do you think the elections will take place on the 30th of December, as announced by CENI? And looking at the political career of President Joseph Kabila, stating that he will still be in politics, do you think there will be change in the DRC? All right, we seem to have lost Aime there, but Nixon, the same question that I was posing to Aime, do you think that President Joseph Kabila, he has come out and stated that he is not leaving politics, he will remain in politics. Are we likely to see a situation of the Russian politics where, Putin became prime minister, from prime minister to president, and Medvedev became prime minister and president, and vice versa?
This could happen, but the DRC situation is quite different. The president is in control of everything. That's the challenge. even when Ramadan Shadari was, you know, as the handpicked as the successor to his presidency, you'd have seen how much the wife of the president actually being the main campaign personnel alongside Ramadan Shadari. Who is the person in charge of the electoral, campaign in terms of the youth is Zo Kabila, the brother of the president, and the sister being involved in the electoral. So you see that Kabila in the shadow is there running the show in the shadows through his families. And that is a challenge. Hence, it goes back to the issue of saying, did he build the institution? No. And not only that, the other danger is that he didn't build a political party in the country, like in as much as that you have the ANC here, where you have a succession. Then you know already that after Cyril Ramaphosa, someone else could come up and will lead the
Nixon, there's so much that's happening. It is a developing story. The whole world is watching very intensely, and we will continue this discussion with African Affairs analyst Nixon Katembo at the top of the hour, who is joining us live in studio. And as I've mentioned already, this is a very big developing story. The whole world is watching, and thank you to Aime Zonveni, who was joining us via Skype from Lubumbashi in the DRC. Time now for a quick break. More